I think what's unique about this update, yeah, it is more technical because it's getting more into the functionality of the web page versus just the content.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. But as a website owner, I'm the user of the content management system.
Right.
And these vitals have everything to do with the content management system, and I can't change those. So I mean, that's what I mean. There's a problem that they have a solution for a problem I don't have.
Right.
And if the content management systems don't get on board, what's going to happen? And this is where I think we're going to see a lot more of that.
Welcome to Endless Coffee Cup, a regular discussion of marketing news, culture, and media for our complex digital lifestyle. Join Matt Bailey as he engages in conversation to find insights beyond the latest headlines and deeper understanding for those involved in marketing. Grab a cup of coffee, have a seat, and thanks for joining.
Ashley Swigert is back with us today. Ashley, so good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm so excited to talk to you and your listeners and ready to just get back at it because I feel like it's been a while, right?
It has. I think it's been a couple of months since, well, not since we last talked, but since you've been in the studio. So, yeah, lots of things going on. And probably one of the biggest things as far as SEO. We already caught up on everything else.
Yes.
But Core Web Vitals, the latest update went live. And yes, you immediately sent over an email saying, we need to talk about this.
Yes. And the reason why I wanted to talk about it is we had that podcast. What was it? Was it last year? Maybe the year before, talking about what has really changed with SEO. And we always go back to quality content. And that is still very much the case. That will never change. And quality is still being evaluated today. But this new algorithm update is very interesting. And that happened in May. I mean, it was technically happening throughout, but they wanted to really roll that out within Google in May. And you could see that a lot of this gets into technical and obviously user experience. So that needs to be top of mind. So it's more than just looking at mobile friendliness. This is really getting into the weeds of your website and making sure that you have a developer that understands the technical side of SEO and that you do understand some of these pieces that we're going to be diving into today.
Absolutely. I thought it was interesting when it was first announced that it had everything to do with user experience. But what I noticed is it's user experience from a very technical standpoint. Page speed and now I can get behind the shift. There's nothing I hate more than when I am loading a page, especially on my mobile, and I start reading the article and everything moves. Because ads are loading. And so, yeah, I can get behind some of this, but then you start digging into what it means and what it requires. And all of a sudden, the learning curve is dramatic. It's not like typical SEO.
No, it's really not. And that's something that I am definitely an SEO person. And you know where my background is. It goes into the writing piece. I think we talked about this, how there's two schools of thought with SEO. Either you're more on the technical side and that development piece, or you're a content writer. And SEO does really require both. And I'm feeling that with this algorithm update, it's getting into the technical side for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you have safe browsing, you have your SSL certificate, which I would hope would already be in place, but it's definitely something that you need to have if you're really looking at the security of your site and making sure going into that user experience that the user does feel safe when he or she is entering the site and looking around.
Right. I mean, and that's part of the user experience that especially if you are tracking data, getting data, credit card data, users need to know everything is secure. But this gets into so much, and we were just talking about that. It gets into the weeds rather than things that are very visual or understandable. And again, I think some of this is a good idea, but the more I started looking into it, I mean, I use WordPress. I love WordPress.
Yes.
I love WordPress. But part of this is I really can't manage a lot of this using a third-party platform. And so, it was interesting because I saw an article that compared WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, Wix, I think it was like the big 10 of content management systems. And some performed better, some performed worse. It wasn't crazy consistent. But ultimately, what the article concluded is you're kind of locked in. Whatever you're using, you're locked into whether they, as a platform, choose to develop around core web vitals. And I believe at this point, like WordPress and I think a couple of others have even come out and said, we're not going to change anything.
No, I mean, I think the only thing that's really good about, I'll just, use WordPress as an example, that we know that your images should be optimized whenever you're adding them on your site, but it has gotten a little bit pickier.
Yeah.
I've noticed.
Like
yeah. I'm trying to think of how to like properly word this, because you're going to find, if you're thinking, has my site been impacted by this update, and how, just go into your Google Search Console and it will tell you basically what you need to fix. And a lot of times you will see it does have to do with image optimization.
Right.
But if you're checking the page speed of your site anyways, which you should have been doing even before this update, you'll notice that image optimization has always been important, but it is pickier today than I think it was before. And you can use plugins on your site, and WordPress, I know, has several plugins for image optimization. But the reason why you just don't want to go in and download a plugin and start utilizing this, if you have a staging site, great. You can go ahead and test that before you push that live. But not everybody does, because they're like, well, I have backups, so who cares? I'll just do this, in the evening or whatever, right? That's not always great. But you'll notice that if you're just using one of these plugins, you can have some things break.
Yeah.
And especially since it has gotten so picky. So I know recently I've just been really evaluating this to say, okay, like I'll just use, when I'm trying to speed up a site, how much do I really want to focus on with speeding that site up? What is going to be the most important piece? So I know you touched on it, but like the pop-ups, right? Those can slow down your site, having all those ads. So really digging into what pertains to user experience and what doesn't.
Well, and it's interesting. So the elements of core web vitals, there's the speed, the shift, and the area, how long it takes for the first bit of information, or the largest bit of information to show up. Going through those are almost all affected by advertising. Yeah. And so if you put ads on your pages, this is going to affect you more so. And so this is why, we were kind of talking about small businesses and how are they going to respond, but I think this is actually going to affect publishers more.
I was just thinking that, because who really puts ads on the site? But I do think that if you're a business and you're relying on publishers to help you, get some customers because you're spending money on these ads, I think it's important to know that you may not want to invest in that revenue stream as much as you did in the past.
To me, and so this is where I don't know, whenever Google announces something new, I tend to take a very first of all, I don't jump in. Yeah. I'm not all on board with the Google. All right.
Yeah.
I look at their announcements very suspiciously, because one of the things that was announced that as Core Web Vitals is being implemented, AMP is no longer being supported.
Yes.
And now wait a minute. If you're a publisher, you, for the past, 5, 8 years, have been investing heavily in AMP. Lots of publishers have had to hire programmers to create AMP friendliness for Google.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, without warning, gone.
Well, and that's where it gets into you should be checking your traffic anyways. Like every month you should be going into Google Analytics and seeing, are you dropping in traffic? And if you are, what's happening? Now, I will say I did see with some of my clients that haven't invested as much in the user experience, maybe have done some other things. that they were impacted by the algorithm update. It wasn't huge
Right.
for some. Others, maybe more than.
Well, and I think it's going to be across the board. I mean, it
Yeah.
really is. And first, so yeah, I think publishers got jobbed
Yep.
because they invested in AMP. It got yanked out from under them. And now AMP was not without its controversy because they, at first they were not getting credit for those page views that Google was showing in the results. And now the publishers, if they rely on ads, they're the ones that are going to be, now you need to invest in speed. Now you need to invest in these core web vitals. So it's like there's this, if I was a publisher who relies on ad revenue, I would be furious at Google
yeah.
with this change.
That's where you might want to just like sit back and kind of watch a
Just
bit.
watch. That's my advice, honestly.
Yeah.
Let's just watch this for a while because Google has a history.
Mm-hmm.
They have a history of doing things and then switching midstream. Now,
Yes.
I'll say it's usually 5 years or so, 4 to 5 years. Well, look at what happened with cookies. They reversed course on that real fast, didn't they?
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, they blinked.
Mm-hmm.
It was supposed to happen. Nope. 2 more years of cookies.
Well, yeah, and there's just a lot of things that will happen in updates that they don't always come out and say, and that's whereas your SEO person should always be testing and just kind of, digging around a little bit. Like I remember when Penguin had that big update, and everybody was saying you can't have a lot of links in your footer area. You remember that? Like you have to be really careful with that, and how many duplicate links you have on a single web page. And that was the case actually at first, but that did start changing, and that's not the case today. And that's why you do want to just monitor this and see. I mean, this just rolled out. Yeah, you're going to see a fluctuation in your traffic, but maybe just go ahead, make some updates, but I wouldn't panic.
No.
I would see how you do maybe next month and the following, just kind of track it a bit. Now, if you are using...
So, Ashley, I think that's a great point. Don't
You're
panic.
right.
And that's my number one advice to people is, okay, algorithms change. Don't panic. And honestly, you're like, don't give it a month, give it a 2. I'm like, how? I mean, I'm trying to think like the last time I went and looked at anything. And honestly, the algorithm changes daily.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, it's constantly being revised. And let's be honest, there's humans behind the algorithms. Humans make mistakes. It's not always going to be the same. I honestly have not tracked rankings of any sites that I manage or anything for probably years.
See, I still track some
So
rankings.
yeah, I personally, I don't panic. I don't even go look.
Well, because it makes sense why you wouldn't, because there's always fluctuation.
Yeah.
Always. Keywords, the keywords that you're ranking for right now, you might not be ranking for those, later. I mean, they're always going to go up and down, up and down, up and down.
But here's the thing, you're looking at a single data point.
Yeah, you are.
So it could be the trend.
Mm-hmm.
There are keyword trends. Some are very drastic, some are not. So
Well, look at 2020, right? You're
Right.
going to, the state of the environment was obviously very different.
Yep.
People were at home. I have a client that does flooring, and it was very interesting to see because a lot of people were working on home projects.
Yeah.
And some of their keywords could be used for like a consumer and for a business.
Mm-hmm.
So we really had to analyze that and,
Yeah.
really see, okay, why is somebody going here? And is this really,
Yep.
what this page should be about?
See, and that's the danger. You can't just take like a single data point and say, oh, well, and build a whole case around it and now we're going to change. No, there's drastic changes in when keywords are important. So yeah, naturally you're going to see demand fall and rise. That's why I love looking at analytics more than ranking reports.
Yes.
And again, and this is something I have to really teach people, the amount of visits you get does not have a direct impact on the amount of revenue you produce or the amount of leads you produce. There is not a direct line from visits to conversions or visits to sales. It may look like there is a direct relationship, but there really isn't. In between someone coming to the site and converting, there's a lot that goes on. We don't know why they're there, what they're looking for. And that comes down, yes, to usability, user experience, and all
I
those
was just going to
things.
say
Yeah.
that it's going to get into some of the other, and then this wasn't really talked about as much, I don't think, with, because, I was just kind of going through my notes because there's just been so many factors in this algorithm
Yes.
update, and I just wanted to make sure I had them all. I know when we were first talking about this podcast, but what you're speaking about is going into those user signals that are like bounce rate, time on the page, all those things that do impact your rankings. But I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. You can increase traffic and it could be irrelevant traffic.
Mhm.
And so you do want to make sure that those other pieces that are found within your Google Analytics are up and where they need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and the other side of this whole thing too is I've got a friend who works for a very large brand, and always he's trying to talk about page speed. But the problem is, because this is a legacy brand, they've been around, there is legacy code that will never be changed because he's an SEO. There are other people that run the website, and they're kind of a technically oriented company. Nothing will change. Those pages will not change the weight of the page or the size of the page.
Mm-hmm.
He's never going to affect that. It's not going to happen. And so how many very large enterprise level companies have that sort of issue where there are other people managing the website and managing parts of the website, and there's legacy code that will not be moved regardless of what Google says. And so, we talked about the small businesses. There's also the enterprise level businesses that if you're an SEO there, you don't affect a lot of change.
No, you don't, because they're relying on other types of marketing to really
Right.
bring traffic to their
Right.
site, like referral, direct. They're not really relying on on organic.
Right. Well, and I think that's something we can learn, even a small business person can learn is, yeah, you may be getting 50% or more of your traffic from search. Do other things. Do other marketing. Do other methods that if search went away tomorrow, what would you have? And don't throw it all into social media. Please don't do that.
I know. I was just thinking that 'cause we were just talking about that earlier.
Before we turned on the mics, yeah.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, that's why it gets into the conversion funnel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just looking at where your traffic is going on your site, I personally believe that every web page fits within the funnel. Like it's either on the awareness stage or it's on the consideration stage. And so thinking about where it fits and the type of content that is on your page, and if that makes sense to that stage, that will tell you that, okay, am I going to be able to bring a person to the next stage and convert them or not?
Right. It's and so I think because of some of this, I think Google's lost a lot of credibility in the past year.
Yeah.
So, the cookies are going away, and they're going to be replaced with Flock, the Federation Learning of Cohorts. And then one by one, you see WordPress say, no, we're going to block Flock.
Mm-hmm.
So Google can't use any WordPress sites to gather data on users. Then Amazon comes out. They're going to block Google's Flock.
Yeah.
And, more and more, I think eBay was one, but major web properties saying, no,
Yep.
Google, we're not playing the game. And now all of a sudden, Google says, after major companies, okay, cookies for another 2 years. We're going to rely on Flock. So Google blinked when the rest of the industry said, we're not going to play your game. And I think Core Web Vitals, it's, as someone pointed out, this is not an industry standard. This is not like W3C. It's not like the Web Accessibility Initiative. This is Google's standard that they have created themselves, but nobody else is on board. Nobody else helped to create that. It's their own standard that they are trying to apply across the board to everybody. And I have to wonder if there will be people who say, no, it doesn't work for us. We don't like it. We don't want it. Just like what happened with Flock. I think, already you've got people angry about AMP being discontinued.
Yeah.
And then Google saying, here's a new standard. What's going to happen 5 years from now, Google? Are you going to tell us there's a new standard? And So I think they're losing some credibility in the marketplace. I don't think people are as willing to play the Google game, especially when it's as intense and it requires us, I think, well, already like WordPress, we're not going to respond to Core Web Vitals. We're going to change what we're doing. And other CMS systems have said the same thing. So, wow.
Where's that going to go?
I mean, I think we've seen a shift in the past year about people just kind of fed up with playing the Google game.
I'm glad to see it personally because, I'm just hoping that it's not just with Google. I'm hoping that this happens with other types of things like Facebook. And,
Yes.
right? I mean, I just want to see, I do want to see companies stick up for themselves and say, no, I've had it.
Yeah. Well, and as someone said that they said Core Web Vitals, Google created a solution for a problem no one had.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's well, and so here's the thing, and I explained this to people so it was years ago. I'm trying to think what it was. This was so early. This was in the early 2000s where Google started image search.
Yep.
However, they also at one of the conferences let it slip, and I'm doing air quotes. They quote unquote let it slip that if you added the title of what an image was in the image tag, like
In the alt tag,
image and title, what named the image and described it, it would help your rankings. So what did every SEO do? What did every SEO blogger do? It tag your images. And less than a year later, Google Images came out. And, so some of us are, whoa, wait a minute here.
That's why SEO has theory. There is so much theory in SEO. It's I think it's one of the most debatable pieces of marketing out there.
Yeah.
Because everybody has an opinion about it. Everybody says that this is going to impact your rankings. This isn't.
Right.
And you can find an article saying, oh, well, that's not true. This is true. Well, that's where you really get into testing your site. You have to test your site. You have to watch. You have to see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
You can't just go along with what everybody's saying. But it's so interesting that you said that because I remember another SEO person was saying to me, well, alt tags aren't as important anymore. Who cares? Well, and I'm thinking, how is Google even crawling that image? I mean, think about that. So, and I remember I still put them in.
Right, yeah.
And
it's an accessibility issue. It has nothing to do with it. And I think, honestly, alt tags do matter.
I think so,
because
too.
It's an accessibility issue.
But see, that is debatable.
Well,
that's still debatable.
I talked about this on another podcast where it's not one thing that matters.
Right.
It's 100 things on that page that you have done to create context. And
Google's looking at what is this page about?
Right, yeah. But to say one factor that is not just and this goes back to the standard. Web Accessibility Initiative, alt tags are a standard.
Yeah.
Google uses that standard because we've always said if your website is accessible to screen readers, to anyone with disabilities, it's accessible to Google.
Yes.
And so, yeah, absolutely. That's where we're looking at different standards and how they apply. But yeah, it's hilarious. Now I completely forget where we were on that.
I know. It's so easy to.
So someone from Google let it leak about image titles.
Yep.
6 months later, they come out with Google Image Search. Well, now, did they use the SEO community as a tool to get something done that they needed done, which was millions of images with a tag describing what it is, and now all of a sudden they launch image search? I tend to believe that was not an accident. And maybe I've got the tinfoil hat on and all that. But then a little bit later, Google starts talking about page speed. Well, okay, but if you know how search engines work, they download copies of your web page.
Yep.
You can go in and you can look at the cached version. Now, the cached version is the copy of your website that is on Google's server. Now, one of Google's biggest expenses, servers. Why? Because they are downloading copies of everything they find online. billions of websites, of images, of pages.
Yep.
Now, if your number one expense is hosting and storage, what happens when you tell webmasters, if your pages are a little bit lighter and they load faster, you go up in the rankings. And they make that a signal in SEO. What are these webmasters going to do? Start lightening their pages,
Yep.
which lowers how much space they need to store all these pages on. So that's what I mean. This is why I always view Google with a little bit of suspicion, because there's always that.
They have an end game.
There is an angle. They
Yep.
always have an angle. Now, I can't prove any of this. This is just from my observation over the past years.
Yeah, this is your tin hat.
This is my tinfoil hat with Google. I am deeply suspicious whenever they make a major or minor move, because I'm like, there's something they're not saying. And yeah, I mean,
I think we talked about that even with advertising and
and the ads. Yeah, we've talked.
yeah, I think there's a lot. I agree with you.
Yeah. They're a publicly traded company
Yep.
with shareholders, and their job is to create profit.
Yeah.
That's it. Even before then, and the "Don't Do Evil" motto disappeared like within a decade. So, yeah, I tend to view some of these things very, very suspiciously. Like, yeah, okay, I understand you're going to make that part of the algorithm, and you're going to say pages need to be faster. Just the way I approach it, pages are lighter, which means you don't need to store much. But I could be completely off base on that.
But that's the thing too. Like, I think most people use that tool, Google Page Speed Insights, to see, because it's free, and they look at that, or GT metrics, right? And they actually both measure different things on your website to see if it's see how fast it is. So they actually measure different things. So you do want to make sure you're aware of that. But Google Page Speed Insights actually changed when this algorithm came up. Yeah, because I remember I made a change on a site before it happened, before this started rolling out. And I started looking, because I'm always checking, and I noticed that I'm like, why did the site slow down? This doesn't make any sense. We did all these things, and then I was talking to a couple developers who are always like, checking this stuff out, and they're like, oh yeah, there were some changes with Google Page Speed Insight. And so I was like, oh, okay. Well, isn't that awfully convenient?
I mean, I think it's a good idea to have the Search Console.
Yes.
I think it's a good idea to have those things because it's information.
Mm-hmm.
However, the danger is in reacting to everything. Great example. I brought this up before. The Web Accessibility Initiative, the W3C for accessibility.
Yes.
If you were to run a website, even a well-optimized design website, through the accessibility checker, most sites would not pass 100%.
Oh, no, absolutely. You're right.
And if you look at where it fails, you can justify, well, we didn't do that because there's this functionality, there's this, there are clear and good rationalizations for why you don't have 100% compatibility or 100% whatever it is. I don't apply 100%
right
to the accessibility because there are specific reasons that you do things. And not to say that some of those are wrong, just they're not completely applicable. But again, that where you do an automated check of your website, it's checking the code. The code. And it's the only thing it's looking at is the code.
And that is something that is really important, I think, for everybody listening to understand, because I think it's common, because we are visual people, that when we get on a website, we see pictures, we see all of this, and we start changing all of this, and that this is a robot that is crawling your site.
Yep.
And it can't see it.
Right.
Yeah. So it is absolutely looking at the code.
Any automated test where you put in your domain and there is something that happens, it's looking at your code. It's not a human looking at your website. And that's ultimately where you're going to make your money.
Yeah.
From the humans. Bots don't pay.
Right.
They don't do that. So that's why I say, go ahead and connect your site to Webmaster Tools or Search Console. Get on Bing Webmaster Tools. Get on as many as you can, because it's information. It's information that will guide you. But please don't feel you have to respond and react to every suggestion or every area where it says you're deficient.
Yeah, I mean, I think that waiting a bit is always a good thing whenever there's a new update.
Oh,
like just wait. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, don't freak out. I mean, I think it's good. I mean, I completely support what you're saying. Like, go ahead, make some changes, but you don't have to do every little thing. So that's why you do want to weigh what's more important, and what really makes sense for right now, especially if you're a business that maybe has a smaller budget. Some of those things you don't have to do right now.
Right. And we were talking about that how many small businesses are going to get priced out because of all these technical issues. Like we were saying, if I'm a small business with a WordPress website and, maybe a WooCommerce store.
Yes.
If I can't do it in WordPress, now what? I have to hire someone who technically, hopefully, is proficient in this.
Yeah.
I have no way of checking. I have no way of knowing, other than some report maybe that they generate. But that's always been a concern of mine, is that Google is asking for more and more technical things that, as even a small business, even large businesses, where the SEOs are mainly content producers, they're not technical, and they have IT people running the site, who, Google says that no, we'll do our own thing. Not everyone's paying attention.
They just don't care,
and not everyone can afford to react. That's I think the big issue.
If you're enjoying this episode on keywords and keyword research, then you'll be excited for this offer. Using the promo code in the show notes, you can get 25% off a new subscription to WordTracker. I use WordTracker for all of my keyword research projects, and I highly recommend it for the data, easy interface, and helpful tools. Again, use the promo code in the link for 25% off the regular price. To take the next step, I've also placed a link to my LinkedIn Learning course on keyword research, and that'll help you become an expert in no time.
When you have a big company, you have an IT team, because I totally get that type of culture, and the IT team is running the website. They're going to look at it very differently than someone who is an SEO person.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is something to really keep in mind, that those pieces have probably been ignored for a long time. And I mean, they really have. I mean, all these updates have probably been ignored. I mean, there are sites that I know that, when you said there's just some code that won't change. It's just going to be what it is. And there are some, companies that I know that, they're larger and their websites look bad. And you'll even you can crawl it and look at it. But guess what? Their domain authority is extremely high. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's that will never change. Your domain authority is essentially your popularity score with Google. And that comes from other marketing initiatives. Mm-hmm. And that will never change. And that will impact how, you're going to show up in rankings.
I'm going to sound so Marxist when I say this. The system is inherently unfair.
Yeah. Yeah, if you had the money, you had the power, I hate to say it, you are going to. Yeah. I mean, I remember years ago, and I think I might have even said this on our last SEO podcast, but I was helping a company that was a new lingerie company. And she was competing against Victoria's Secret. Yeah. And I mean, I hate to say this, Victoria's Secret's going to win. They're a big box brand. Everybody knows them. You're not going to win. So that's where, you get into when you have, I do believe in the power of having a good content person as your SEO. Because, that's where I come from. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at, okay, what are your competitive advantages?
Yes.
And what is the niche here? So is this just standard lingerie, or is it I mean, I hate using lingerie as an example, but
You dug the
it's
hole,
the only one I
Ashley.
could think
You
of right
dug
now.
the
It's the
hole.
only one I
I'm
could
just
think
gonna
of.
sit back and watch what you're gonna do.
I
now.
know, because I'm thinking, well, I was gonna say, is it a fetish? That's like you just want to think about how is your brand? I know.
like,
Don't judge me, people.
What kind of example is she gonna use? I'm really
I know, that's
curious
what I'm
now.
thinking. This probably isn't the best example right now. It's the first one that came to my head because that one was so heartbreaking because she was starting this business and she actually was this is an excellent SEO story because she was a journalist and for a very well-known publication, and she wanted to start this business and she wanted to do it through e-commerce, and that's fine. But but when you're competing against those kind of stores, you do have to think about how you're going to stick out, from them. And but yeah, there were a couple other things too that happened from an SEO perspective that you wouldn't know about if you're a writer, about duplicate content being an issue.
Oh no,
And
yeah.
there's many lessons to be learned with that particular situation, but. It does get into just making sure that you understand what's important to Google and, how at the end of the day you're going to stick out because the big brands, they have the money, they have the other marketing initiatives to back it up. They have that domain authority, which takes years to get.
Yeah.
A new site, you're not going to get a high domain authority right away. It's just not going to happen. And what do those come from? It comes from links. Domain authority has a lot to do with your links.
Well, and so I think this was probably like 2010, I want to say. BMW got kicked out of Google, I think, for like 2 weeks. Because they were doing doorway pages. I mean, it was
I remember that.
And at a conference, Matt Cutts was, when he was at Google, someone challenged him that how is it that BMW does what other people have done, and they're back in the index in 2 weeks, and with a barely an apology, and Matt Cutts, I don't think this was the company line, but he says, well, to the effect, you can't have search results without BMW. Mm-hmm. If someone's just searching for BMW, you can't have BMW.com, and it's like, whoa, everyone around the room all of a sudden realized this is unfair.
Oh, yeah.
That a big brand can do this, and Google's line is, well, they have to be there. That's the web just expects them to be there.
Yep.
And so that's where we're like, yeah, this is not a completely democratic process. This is, yes, you're a small business, you're trying to cheat, yeah, you will get kicked out.
Oh, yeah. And that's where you get into local SEO even. If you're a company that's very well known locally and you have the certain things in place that you should have, you're going to do better than somebody who's just starting. And that's how you have to really look at your marketing as a whole. You can't just rely on one piece.
And that's why
this update should not kill you online.
Not at all.
If you're looking at everything else, it should not kill you. Because, ultimately, these other pieces that we're talking about, they do go into user experience because,
Absolutely.
If you're thinking about how every web page is used on your site and you're driving traffic to that web page that just makes sense, then you're going to get the kind of results that you're looking for.
Yeah. Well, even so, John Mueller, it's so funny. Every time from Google, every time he says something, it's like people are parsing it. What did he mean? And what is he trying to? I'm amazed. Now, one of the things he said, which made complete sense, people are still breaking it down, which is don't focus on just one of these aspects.
Right.
This is part of a big picture. And so if all you do is focus on core web vitals, you're going to miss the big picture.
Yeah.
If all you do is focus on links, you're going to miss the big picture. Your website is I like to say it's an organic mechanism. It's an organic organism that moves, lives, breathes, and you feed it different things. But I always come back. If I'm going to do one thing, I'm going to do PR.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm going to focus on one thing, it's going to be PR because it's content, it's links, it's credibility, it's traffic, it's sales, it's that. If I'm going to do one activity to market my website, it's PR.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're completely right. And, that's the thing too. Unfortunately, depending on the type of PR you're doing, it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
It is not something that you're just going to get an immediate result.
It's marketing. It
I
takes
mean,
strategy.
it
takes,
does.
And I say PR, but wrapped up in that statement of PR
Yeah.
is, it's how are you going to do it? What are you going to do? What are you working towards? It's a strategy unto itself.
Well, and it's too making sure you understand, like, don't rely on a press release.
Mm-hmm. No,
Like, you should never
that's not
rely
PR.
on a press release. So when we're saying PR, we mean like byline articles.
Yes,
Or
yes.
like, I mean, you can get away with doing like a press release and have like a good link come in if it's like with the Washington Post. But typically people are doing like mass press release distribution to, smaller publications, or, they're putting it on the wire, and that's not going to do a lot for you when it comes to domain authority.
No, but getting into industry publications, getting
Yes.
interviewed, getting, whether it's local, industry, regional, things like that. And even within an industry, there are so many opportunities to get stories out there. And the thing is, content right now is a currency. And I'm amazed at how many people are asking for content for free. Anymore, I'm like, I am not going to write for you for free, because my content, you're using it to make money through ads, through subscribers, through, all these things. Anyone, I like to say, yeah, if you're writing content to get noticed, you and millions of other people are doing the same thing.
That's why you need SEO. You need to understand
I am
SEO.
a firm believer.
Yep.
This whole industry needs to shape up a bit and pay for the content.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I was watching something that, I don't want to get into conspiracy theories, but like I was watching something about what the future is going to look like, when it comes to content development, and finding real news and finding like real information out there. Because if you think about it, if our web is going to be dominated by influencers, by bloggers, like, where's the real data coming from? Because if those are going to be the people that are going to show up in search results, what's going to happen here? And, I think less and less people are trusting like news outlets. And
I don't think it's going to, I don't think like that whole, a lot of the influencer stuff that we associate with social, I don't think that's going to influence search results. I'm still fairly happy with search results.
I'm like talking about more or less like YouTube.
Well,
or,
exactly.
Yeah.
No, when and maybe this is just me, but when I search for how to do something and I see a YouTube video that's 10 minutes long, no.
Oh, I know.
No, I'm looking for an article that will give me steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 that I can read in 40 seconds.
And that sounded like a good publication. I
Right,
hate to say
right.
it, because some of these are you're just like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't trust you.
In those cases, I don't want to watch a YouTube. No. And part of it too is I don't want my YouTube algorithm all of a sudden flooded with how-to articles and how to do that same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, that too.
Exactly,
right.
right? It's kind of like, no, leave
Yeah.
me alone. Just give me what I want. So, yeah. And again, Core Web Vitals, that doesn't address attitude. It doesn't address trust. It doesn't address a lot of these things. But yeah, especially as you were talking about with influencers, they're taking over many other areas. I can't stand Instagram.
I know you can't. That's why I was laughing earlier. I'm like, if I get into this other stuff, you're going to go on a tangent.
I can't stand Instagram. The interface, just everything. I am still grudgingly on it.
I thought you were getting a TikTok.
I will not get a TikTok. I am sorry. No, I have no desire at all to do that. So no. And there is no TikTok on any phone in this house.
Oh my.
No,
yeah.
no TikTok, no Snapchat, no.
Yeah, I don't get into the Snapchat as much.
Or Facebook.
But...
There's no Facebook apps. Those have all been removed. Well, they were removed years ago. Let's say that.
Yeah.
So, wow, we're on an aside.
I know. I have something I want to say about those, like Facebook. Well, you know how like you're getting the notifications about like I don't want ads to pop up that reflect my results, or you're trying to protect your privacy. I still get them.
So you're gonna laugh. We are so off topic. But
I know
okay
we
at this
are.
point.
That's why I'm like, I just
So,
wanted to bring that up. Anybody else?
I had to do a Facebook campaign for somebody over Christmas, and I broke out a computer that I don't use anymore, and I completely wiped it. and I that's what I did my Facebook campaign on.
Oh
So
my gosh.
So because I did not want to bring it up on any of my browsers or anything like
Yeah,
that.
'cause
This was its own device, and set up an account just to do all this. And yeah, because I didn't want to keep associating stuff with my account. It's like,
Right.
no, just I'm
Right.
done. I'm done. So yeah, and I didn't want any footprints at all anywhere on any machine that I had.
No, it's I know. I was just kind of shocked. I'm thinking, wait a minute here. I thought that I had the right privacy in place. What? Yeah, that's scary, isn't it?
It's weird.
Yeah.
How everything's coming down. I'm very, very interested. I think privacy is going to be
Well, and
one
that's
of the biggest things.
Well, and that gets into this with the core web vitals. I mean, it talks about safe browsing and your SSL certificate. But I think at the end of the day, if you're just looking at like what you were talking about with, look at the themes, right? Look at what is it really all about? It's about efficiency and functionality, right?
Well, Google talking about safe web browsing is like the guy in the white van telling you his candy is healthy. Okay.
Oh my god.
I'm sorry. Didn't Google just try to pull Flock over our eyes, where they were basically tracking everyone with a Chrome browser and what they did and putting them into segments? So Google, please don't talk to me about safe browsing, because how many websites is your code on? Whether it's analytics, ads, it's the same tag everywhere. You are gathering data like nobody's business. And so to bring up these safe web browsing things, yeah, right.
I think it gets into, what we were talking about in our last podcast when we were talking about SEO and what's really important. Has it changed?
Yeah.
Quality content. Is your content spammy? Going into, your ads, how it is going to affect publishers, because that doesn't look like a credible source anymore if you're getting slammed with a bunch of ads. So it's like just thinking, just stepping back and using an element of common sense. Does this look like, if I'm new to this site, does this look like a credible source? Like, am I getting my 1, 2, 3s for your how-tos?
Right.
Right? Am I getting what I need as soon as I go here? I think that's really what this is about. And so I think what's unique about this update, yeah, it is more technical because it's getting more into the functionality of the web page versus just the content.
And that's the thing. But as a website owner, I'm the user of the content management system.
Right.
And these vitals have everything to do with the content management system, and I can't change those. So I mean, that's what I mean. There's a problem that they have a solution for a problem I don't have.
Right.
And if the content management systems don't get on board, what's going to happen? And this is where I think we're going to see a lot more of that. But it's not that I'm anti. Well, it's not that I'm anti Google. I think Google. Hey, how many websites and businesses have been affected by the amount of traffic that Google sends them?
Yep.
I'm on board with that. But here's the thing. I'm not completely in love with everything they do, just like any company. And I think there's a danger to just kind of mindlessly, I'm going to use everything Google has. I can't sign on to that.
Oh, I shouldn't. I use a lot of Google stuff. So I'm thinking, I agree with you, but I am like,
Google Drive.
It is Google Drive. That's why I'm laughing over here. Even my notes, I use like the Google Notes. Like everything's on there. I even use the photos. I use everything's Google. I know. But you know what I like about it is that I could be at another computer at somebody else's house, or I could be at a client's office, and I could pull it up right there and then. And that's why I do like it. All I have to do is sign in. But I understand where you're coming from. I just give up. So I'm like, all right, Google, you got me.
Wow. That's amazing.
I know.
Man.
Hey, if you can't beat them, join them.
Oh, no, come on, Ashley, please. No, you got to go back and listen to the Free is Bad podcast
I know.
that
I
did,
know.
with
I do.
John
I
Marshall
should.
and them. Yeah, just You are locked in.
I am
You are
locked in.
locked
I have a
in.
lot of
Wow.
Google stuff. I'm a fan.
And I can understand. It's easy. It's easy to use. They made it that way. But yeah, I just can't.
I know. I know a lot of people like you, and I just am like, whatever.
Well, and part of it too is I can get away with a lot of things as far as what I choose to use and don't choose to use. There are, being independent and training for a living, I can get away with a lot. Not everyone has the freedom to,
I'm just
I'm not gonna
always
use
in
that.
a hurry. That's my problem. I'm like, I'm in a hurry. I need something now, and I need this to be
Yep.
accessible everywhere because it's so easy. That's the thing.
Well, so.
But think about what I'm
we'll
saying,
start.
though.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
efficiency, it gets into this algorithm, right?
Okay.
Like getting sucked in by efficiency and functionality. Like that's where it all comes down to, making sure that your audience knows that it's getting the content that it needs. Like if you want to rock an SEO, make sure that you're providing the content that your audience needs. So make sure you know your audience and make sure that your website is functioning correctly and that it's efficient, because nobody wants to wait for content to load, that they want to hurry up like me
Yeah.
and get their stuff done, because there's a lot of people that I'm sure are like me and they just want to just get it done. I want to move on to the next task. Yeah.
So I reacted to Core Web Vitals. I did react to that when it was coming out because, like I said,
We
it's
all
some
did.
good ideas.
Right.
Good ideas. Number one, images. I went ahead and got the Smush.
Yeah.
Smush Pro.
Yeah, the plugin.
I did that. And the second thing was the JavaScript. Moving the JavaScript to external files, which honestly we've known we should be doing that for a decade or more.
Yeah.
That's stuff you just know, but when you start using content management systems that don't always do that, you have to go into it manually. So those were two areas where, and now granted, I will be completely honest, I paid someone to do it.
Yeah.
It comes to the point where
It's tedious technical work.
It is.
Yeah.
At one point, I think I went 3 years without doing anything in WordPress. And then when I got back into it, I was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
The interface changed, everything changed. So it's taken a while to get back into it. It's like, this is not my specialty. And so I need to find people who this is their specialty, build a relationship with them, and allow them to advise and make recommendations. And then, it's okay, I'll do that. That, like we were talking about, that I'm going to wait on.
Yeah, that's why you just have to make sure you're prioritizing correctly and you understand it. So that's
Yeah.
why, you do want to make sure that you're talking to somebody that has a strong technical background when it comes to SEO and when you're looking at this.
Yep. And the thing is, so a couple of the technical issues, we put them on the shelf because I have some user experience issues. I have some design things that it's more specific to the audience, to the users, where I want a consistent experience.
That's going to impact
Right
your
now,
conversions more.
that's more important to me than some of the technical stuff. So,
Yep.
as a business owner, you've got to pick and choose your battles.
And
What
I
are you
just
gonna
think you
focus on
listed
and
an
do?
excellent example, because that's getting into, what's more important, making money? Or is it getting traffic to your site? Now, you could argue, say, if I get more traffic to my site, I'm going to in turn make money, right? Well, yeah, but you want to make sure that you're making money on the people that are currently visiting your site.
Yeah.
So if your design,
Which you just described as step 1, get people to my site. Step 5, make money.
well,
There's a 2, 3, and 4 in
well,
there
the design that you were talking about, goes into that, because if people don't know, good design is really important because it does. People are going to act certain ways when it comes to certain colors and where things are positioned on your pages, and you do want that to be in place. And I think the recommendations that come up in Google Search Console as it relates to design are important. It is going to impact that area.
Yep. Yeah, there's just a lot of moving parts. Like I said, it's a living organism. Your website is, and it's never done. I remember telling people that, and working in a design firm is just, you'd have to let people know that, okay, this is the site, it's being delivered to you, we are done with this phase of development, it's now yours. but the website is never done. It always needs changed. It always needs updated. It always needs optimized. It always needs more content. You should always be looking at your analytics and figuring out from there, what can we improve? So it's never done. And I think for some reason, because of maybe just the evolution of how everything came about, like you'd go get a website, it's quote unquote done. You expect everything to be perfect.
Yeah.
And very rarely, what have we learned? We have learned that just because that's the way it was delivered to you does not mean it's in its optimal state.
Right. Yes, I think we were even talking about that, earlier when it comes to whenever you're thinking, like you may have bought a website, but is it optimized? And what kind of package did you buy? Like I know when I work with clients, I have different levels of SEO packages. And, some people just want the basic. And the basic actually might not factor in some of the stuff that we've been talking about.
Yeah, there was always some pushback. I mean, and years ago, there's a lot of pushback is I just paid for the website. Why do I have to pay for ongoing service?
It's a common
and that's
one,
when I would talk to them about it's just never done. There's just constant improvement. And so, yeah, I think that maybe sometimes people aren't prepared for that.
I think they think it's going to be like a marketing brochure. And, that's not really how a website should be used. And if you're using a website that way, maybe you can get away with it as a larger company because like what we were just talking about, you're going to win either way. If you have like a high domain authority, but if you're like a smaller company and you're just getting a website to just have it out there, it might not really pull the performance that you're looking for and really give you that ROI if you're not going to keep investing into it, because eventually you're going to get hit with something.
Well, and I think it's important, and we talked about that. Keep in mind, one signal is not enough to change everything. It's not enough to focus just on one signal and make decisions based on that. You've got to watch. You've got to watch everything. A friend of ours, Brian Mathers over in Scotland.
That's so funny. I just heard from him actually the other day.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I got to have him on here. It's been a while. He was like one of the first guests I had, and it was just a terrible recording atmosphere. There was air conditioning and noise, and it was terrible. So I got to get him. I got to get him on. But he was in the Royal Navy, and he was in submarines. And,
I didn't know that about him.
Yeah. So and he gave me the example that when you're in a submarine, you can't look out the window. So you have to rely on hundreds of gauges to let you know your position and the position of other things and everything around you. You can't make a decision on one gauge. You have to make the decision based on all the information here and then decide and interpret what does it mean and how do I react. And I thought that was just a great example of, and that's why he says he was able to transition from submarines into SEO. Because
that is
it's the same
that's why I'm like,
thing.
I'm trying to wrap my head around that. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's making a conclusion based on limited information, which happens to cover dozens or hundreds of data points. And you take that in and make a decision. But if you focus on any one of those too much, you're going to sink the sub.
Yeah, and that's why it gets into a lot of testing. I mean, I think SEO, you're always testing and changing things. Let's see what happens if we do this. And you have to be patient. That's why, I mean, if you're starting a new website, you really should be investing in other types of marketing, because SEO is a long-term strategy and it's going to take time, and it really does depend on your competitors.
Yes.
Just like I was giving the lingerie example. And I mean, it's going to take you some time, because if you have to do some remessaging and really make sure your competitive advantages are out there, that's going to take some work. And so I just would be prepared for that. And I would maybe invest in advertising or some other initiatives for the short term.
Yeah. Just keep your options open and keep marketing.
Yes.
True marketing. And that's one thing I keep talking. We've been talking about this. Numerous people have asked about the cookies and all this. And my opinion is I'd love it if cookies went away and programmatic is reduced, because it's going to make people go back to real marketing. rather than buying millions of impressions and calling that marketing. All you're doing is media buying. You're not marketing. Marketing is a creative method of reaching people and converting them.
Yes.
So that's I'm looking forward to that. I am hoping that happens. I am hoping that's what happens.
I can't wait to see what's going to happen here because I just feel like it's almost the nature of the environment. There's so much going on, and we're all just running, a million miles a minute. And I think it is very easy as a marketer to say, well, I'm just going to buy a bunch of ads, right? And I think this is going to force us to slow down and really be strategic with our approach.
That would be awesome.
Right?
If that would happen. I think all of us would benefit from, and Dr. Fu on here talked about ad fraud and all that. And that was his advice. Stop. Just stop. Stop your advertising. Stop it for a while. Just look what happens. I think it was out of the 50 companies that over the election boycotted Facebook. Nothing happened. Only 2 out of the 50 saw a slight decrease in sales. But the 48 that stopped advertising on Facebook during the election because of Facebook's stance, they didn't lose any sales. And he gave that example and take a step back. Evaluate what's going on. What are you doing? What are your... And I would even go so far as to say, challenge your core beliefs.
Well,
Challenge those things about what you believe strongly, that this produces this when you have no evidence.
Yeah, I love that. Have the data, have the evidence to back it up. But, it just gets into, this all gets into some common sense. And I know I've said that earlier, but like, what is social media used for, right? It's a social platform. It's there for people to talk, to vent, unfortunately. Don't like seeing those posts, but that's what it's really for. I know that there are people that do follow businesses, and it's typically those that they feel really strong about. And I think it's very easy for, like, say, a larger company to get lost in the shuffle on that kind of a platform. So it just depends on what it is that you're offering and the value that you're giving on a social platform. And social platforms are in the awareness stage of the marketing funnel. That's on the very top. These people may not even be interested in you. So, it depends on why they're following you, the value that you're serving, or the employees. So, really evaluating your audience and just making sure that actually makes sense.
Yep. So, message today, don't panic.
Yeah. Right.
Don't panic.
Just wait and see what happens.
Watch. Just watch. Keep an eye on things. And I'll bring this up. So what? I've been doing this now 25 years. And sometimes people would call up. I've lost my rankings. I had a penalty. And I lost track how many times this would happen. And we're being penalized. We lost things. Every time we would investigate, it was never a penalty.
I was just going to say that. Do they really know what a penalty is? Or is it just...
It was a technical mistake. Usually 90% of the time had everything to do with the robots.txt file. That someone misdid it, or they forgot it, or something like that, or something in the program. It was always a technical issue. It was never a penalty when they thought it was a penalty. And I will say, those people who came to me who had a penalty didn't know it was a penalty.
That's a different story.
Yes.
And you'll know that by Google Search Console will tell you. Because it will say manual actions.
Yeah, we got that.
Yeah,
so.
Go in your manual actions and see. But penalties.
Yep.
It's just not great.
No.
Yeah, you don't want that. But that usually happens with black hat SEO. You have to be really doing some stuff. So it is rare.
Yeah, much rarer now, I think, than it used to be.
Yeah.
But, Ashley, thank you so much for coming in today. It was a pleasure just to catch up with you and let's talk a little bit about
everything
SEO and many other subjects. So I appreciate you making the time to come in.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Listener, thanks again for just sitting with us on another edition of the Endless Coffee Cup. I think this was probably a 2-cup episode with everything that we covered. So, Ashley, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, listener, we'll see you again next time on the Endless Coffee Cup.